Hi guys, welcome to Unit 4, Lesson 3, Unit Rates. I would say out of like everything that you learn, this is one that's just so important. I use unit rates all the time. Whether you're using unit rates like for how fast your car goes, or finding the better price of two different items at a store. That's probably the most common for me. So I'm always trying to get the best deal, and this is where that comes into play. Okay, so it is really important. It's important in sports. There's all kinds of different ways that unit rates are used. So first off, there are a few terms that we need to understand. The word per means a quantity of one, okay? Sometimes it also means multiplication, all right? So it's a pretty important word when it comes to math. We also have rates. So we had an introduction to rates in the last lesson, also known as ratios, right? We're comparing two numbers. So I have a definition here, a comparison of two numbers like a ratio, but they have different units. So that's the biggest difference. In ratios, they don't necessarily have to have different units. But one example for a rate would be miles per hour, or you could say like she went 60 miles per 2 hours, right? That could be a rate as well. Unit rate is a rate with a 1 in the denominator. So that second unit is out of 1, all right? And we're going to work on that today. So number 1 of our examples, $5, and this is in your practice. I just didn't feel like writing the whole thing out, and so just look for these numbers so you can find the correct problem. But $5 per 20-ounce cup of hot chocolate. Yum. I'm glad we're getting to hot chocolate season. What is the unit rate in price per ounce? So when we're doing problems like this, we do need to pay attention to the order that they want us to solve it in. So we want price per ounce. All right, so that means in my numerator, I'm going to have the price, and I'm going to have ounces in the denominator. This I could also put dollars, right? That's my price, right? We're working in US dollars right now. So I have $5 per 20 ounces. Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have this number down here in my denominator be a 1. And in order for me to do that, what I need to do is I need to take my numerator and divide it by my denominator. So I'm going to take $5. I'm going to write it as dollars because I might need those cents, right? I'm going to bring my decimal straight up into my answer, and then I'm going to divide that by 20, okay? And what that's going to do is that's going to tell me how much we're paying for each individual ounce. So if we were to take those 20 ounces from that cup and divide them all up into just single 1 ounce portions, how much would each of those cost? All right, so 20 does not go into 5, so I'm going to put a 0. But it will go into 50, right? It'll go in twice. So I used 40. I have 10 left over. Well, I got to go to that next place value, so I'm going to annex my 0, and I'm going to treat this like 100, right? Well, 20, thankfully, goes into 100 5 times perfectly. So we used all 100, and we have 0 left over. So what this tells me, and I could write this a couple different ways, but I could say, here's my price, right? The price is 25 cents per ounce. And if you wanted to, you could put the number 1 there, but you could leave it off also, right? If there's an ounce there, where it's understood that there's 1 ounce. Okay, so it's 25 cents per ounce. And that would be the unit rate. I have, let's see, 2 more problems. Number 2, Liam decides to make a goal to read more books in the next year. 1 year later, he has read 36 books. What is the unit rate of books per month? So we know his unit rate per year, right? That's 36 books per year, right? That's his unit rate. But it's asking us per month. So what we need to consider is how many months are in a year, which is 12. Okay, so again, we gotta pay attention to, like, what is it actually asking us? So in this case, we're gonna say books per month. Well, I could start out by writing the first one. I could say 36 books per 1 year. Well, I want to know how many is that per month, right? So, well, we could say it's 36 books in 12 months, right? Those are equivalent to each other. Okay? But in order to make it a unit rate of where my where my denominator is 1, I need to divide my numerator by my denominator. Okay? So, I'll make a little note up here. 36 divided by 12, which in this case, hopefully you know that, right? Based on multiplication facts, 36 divided by 12 is 3. So knowing that, we could say it's 3 books per 1 month. Or you could also just say 3 books per month. Okay? Number 3, final one for today. 64-ounce bottle. Oh, this is another one. I didn't feel like writing the whole thing down, but I'm pretty sure this is from your quick check. So make sure to pay attention and to find it. A 64-ounce bottle for $3.20 for root beer. What is the unit rate price per ounce? So again, we want money over ounces, right? Price per ounce. Price per ounce. Okay? So right now, and it's presented opposite, right? First, we were given the ounces, then we were given the price. So we need to make sure, even though that happened, we still need to put them in the correct spot in our rate. So $3.20 for 64 ounces. Well, just like the last two, we got to divide our numerator by our denominator in order to turn it into a unit rate. So I'm going to take $3.20 and I'm going to divide it by 64. Okay, so this is already a whole number, so I don't need to move my decimal point. It can go straight up into my answer. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to ignore my decimal. I'm going to treat this like 320. There's a few things that you could do. One, 64 does not go into 3. It also does not go into 32, but it will go into 320. So now we need to kind of estimate. Well, if I were to take 64 and multiply it by 10, which is too many, I can only go up to at least 9 times in here, but I would get up to 640. And using number sense, I can think, well, half of 640 is 320. So if I use 10 64s to get to 640, I could use half of that to get to 320, meaning that 64 times 5 gets me to 320. So, and we could even do that off to the side. We could say just to make sure, if you're like, Miss Angel, you were lying. Okay? Well, let's see. 5 times 4, that's 20. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 2 is 32. Oh, there's my 320. And, oops, I used all of it. I have 0 left over. So, there's my answer. We have, look at that, that's not very much, 5 cents per ounce. Okay, or you could write it out. On any one of these, I could have written out the whole thing. I could have said it costs 5 cents per ounce. Either way, that way or this way, they're both unit rates. Okay, so I hope that helps. And as always, if you need anything, let me know.